Navadharam Navalasyakaram Navadharam Navapushpasaram Navabhavadharam Navalasyakaram Navahasyakaram Navahemavaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Navahasyakaram Navahemavaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Nava Premayutam Navanitasukam Navaveshakritam Navapremarasam Navapremayutam Navanitasukam Navaveshakritam Navapremarasam Navadhavilasat Shubha Premamayam Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Navadhavilasat Shubha Premamayam Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Hari Bhakti Param Hari Namadharam Karajapyakaram Hari Nama Param Hari Bhakti Param Hari Namadharam Karajapyakaram Hari Nama Param Nayane Satatam Pranayashudharam Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Nayane Satatam Pranayashudharam Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Satatam Janata Bhavatapaharam Paramadha Parayana Lokagatim Satatam Janata Bhavatapaharam Paramatma Parayana Lokagatim Navalehakaram Jagatapaharam Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Navalehakaram Jagatapaharam Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Pranamami Sachisthatam Gauravaram Prabhakaram Priyacharutaram Natanatananagara Rajatulam Nija Bhaktikaram Priyacharutaram Natanatananagara Rajatulam Kamini manasa nasyakaram pranamami sachisthatam gauravaram Kamini manasa nasyakaram pranamami sachisthatam gauravaram pranamami sachisthatam gauravaram pranamami sachisthatam gauravaram Kalakantaravam मृदुवाद्यसुविनितय माधुरं करतालबलं कालकाण्ठरगं मृदुवाद्य सुविनिकाय माधुरं निज भक्ति गुणावृत नाट्यकरं प्रणमामि सखीसुत गौरवरं निज भक्ति गुणावृत नाट्यकरं प्रणमामि सखीसुत गौरवरं प्रणमामि सखीसुत प्रणमामि सुत गौरवरं युगधर्मयुतं पुनर्नन्दसुतं धरणीसुचित्रं भवभावुचितं युगधर्मयुतं पुनर्नन्दसुतं धरणीसुचित्रं भवभावुचितं तनुज्ञानचितं निजवासयुतं प्रणमामि सखीसुत गौरवरं तनुध्यानचितं निजवासयुतं प्रणमामि सखीसुत गौरवरं प्रणमामि गौरवरं प्रणमामि शरणं वसनं वदने स्फलितं स्वकनामधरम् अरुणं नयनं शरणं वसनं वदने स्फलितं स्वकनामधरं कुरुते सुरसं जगताजीवनं प्रणमामि सखीसुत गौरवरं कुरुते सुरसं जगताजीवनं प्रणमामि सखीसुत गौरवरं 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaura, Hari
Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Mataji's Danapranam. Let's start with prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam
सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रे। नमो ब्राह्मण्याय देवाय ब्राह्मणहिताय च जगद्धिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। हुकुम करो तो वाचन तंग लगाए थे गिरमित कृपा तमाहु श्री गुरु तेरा दीनतारेण परमानंद महाभु श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम पवित्रो पवित्रो वा सर्वास्तमतोपुवः यस्मै तु पुण्डरीकाक्षं सभाख्याभ्यन्तरस्य चेति श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु। हरे कृष्ण। हरे कृष्ण पद्मा माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम माता जी। हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
माता जी। हरे कृष्ण बाबा। Balamani Mataji. Hare Krishna, Lilananda Prabhu, Dandat
Hare
Pranam Prabhu.
Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna. I will have to leave in another half an hour, Prabhuji. Please forgive me.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shilpa Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mahesh Prabhu, Dandat Pranam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Jagannath Pranam Prabhu.
Praveen Prabhu, Puja Mataji. Hare Krishna, Sandhya Mataji. Hare Krishna, Balamani Mataji, Dandat Pranam. Shukla Mataji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Ramesh Prabhu, Dandat Pranam Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Riti Mataji. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Shreya Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Tulsi Mataji. Hare Krishna, Saraswati Mataji, Dandat Pranam Mataji. Hare Krishna. So we are in the 7th canto, right? The 7th canto is all about Prahlad's story. It's called The Science of God. And then in the 7th canto, we are doing the 6th chapter. Prahlad instructs his demonic schoolmates, basically. So this is the whole chapter is about how Prahlad is telling his Asura friends, basically, not to waste their time in playing and other things, basically. So in other words, he's telling us the same thing. Where we should put our efforts in life, basically. What's the best way of attaining what we are supposed to be attaining in life, right? This is what this chapter talks about. So when he talks about his Asura friends, more or less in Kali Yuga, all of us fit into the same category of Asuras, whom we can say considerably of low intelligence. Comparatively, other people, they are considered of a little lower intelligence, basically, right? In the sense, what is lower intelligence means? Lower intelligence means not having the right intelligence of engaging in spiritual practices, or not having the right understanding of the uh, not having the right understanding of what life is meant for, basically what human life is meant for. The human life is meant for attaining a relationship with God and enjoying that relationship and craving for that and exit out of it with that craving, so much so that you will be reaching his abode, basically, right? And that's the right intelligence. And that kind of intelligence is rarely found in asuras, basically, right? So, but you will find that mostly in devatas. That's the reason why they became devatas. So for them, he is telling, basically, what is he telling? Even the wise, the so-called wise, so-called vijnanis, wise means vijnanis. The so-called vijnanis, jnanis and vijnanis also get themselves entangled in the materialistic world, so much so that liberation is rare. Okay, the only way to get that liberation is to take shelter of Lord Narayana. So from 16th sloka we'll be talking about today. So the first few slokas talked about what is the right utilization of human life, and how is but not having this understanding how human life is being misused, basically. It is in the process of misusing, yes, spending the same energy in grahastha, or so much getting attached to grahastha life, that you're using your prime time, the opportunity of human life and in the prime of human life in serving something mundane, and that's not taking you to the path of liberation. So even the so-called intelligent people, the liberation is so rare. It's what Prahlad Maharaj is saying here in this next few shlokas, basically. So in 16th shloka, let's try to read this. With Vidvanapitam Dhanuja Kutumbam Punnan Swalokaya na kalpate vai. Yes, Viya Parakya Vibhinna Bhava Stama Prapadheta Yadha Vimudaha. So the purports are very long in this chapter, so we'll try to go to the translation purports. Oh my friends, some of the demons. sons of the demons. Oh, my friends, sons of the demons. He's addressing his fellow classmates or fellow people from his Gurukul, where they are supposed to be learning the higher education, basically, right? In this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education have the propensity to consider this is mine and that is for others. Thus, they are always engaged in providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life. Just like uneducated cats and dogs, they are unable to take to spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. So, what is the kind of thing that most the so-called educated are also doing? The educated are also drawing a line between calling this is mine and that is for others. So when you in that perception, what happens is you want to increase this part of mine, basically whatever the positions of the things that you can have control on is what you want to expand. And that's always engaged in providing necessities of life to their own families in a limited conception of family life. Again, the more they're trying to expand themselves or expand their what do you call it, their possessiveness or possessions for themselves and then for their own family life, and then they start drawing things like saying that is for others and this is for me. Basically, this is exactly what in cats and dogs does. They're unable to take the spiritual knowledge. Instead, they're bewildered and overcome by ignorance. If you look at it, the entire capitalism concept is run by this. How much more you can call is mine is what is determined to be, or what determines the greatness of a person, right? Today, that is what we see at every level, at a personal level, at family level, at a city level, at a state level, at a country level. This is exactly what we are seeing in every nation, and that's the reason for wars that we have, basically. And here Prahlad Maharaj is saying this is exactly what you call uneducated cats and dogs do. They have unable to take spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. What kind of ignorance we're talking about? The ignorance of not having the right understanding of God consciousness, right? So for some extent, if capitalism is talking about these things, communism came the other way. They called it nothing is yours, everything belongs to the state. So they decide they ration everything, basically. This is yours, this is states, and this part of the state you get as a ration. So nothing belongs to you, everything belongs to the state. But again, that also did not succeed so much. Again, it is not about communism or it's not about capitalism. It is about having God-centralism, basically. Even if communism, there's a God is part of that, God has been the center of that activity, probably it would have succeeded. Capitalism, if God has been center of that activity, probably it would have been the best path of liberation. So this is where our Sanatana Dharma tries to put it in. The perception of nothing is yours. Nothing is yours. You should come out of that framework of this is mine. If you look at it, a person, he grows as a kid and then he gets into a family life. And once he get into family life, he starts doing things, he or she starts doing things a lot more selfless. The preview of this is mine has expanded, basically, right? It expands into the spouse. And then with time, you have children, and then you work even a lot more selfless to help the children, basically, right? So in essence, the Grahastha Dharma or family life should help you expand your domain of this is mine, basically. So that should tell you that should teach you how to expand yourself to do certain selfless things, basically, that to just not beyond your family, but to the society and to everybody. And that will happen only when the framework is within the spiritual belt of spiritual knowledge, basically. You see what I'm saying, Prabhu and Matajis? So unless that spiritual knowledge takes the backdrop of things that you are doing, you are stuck in the materialistic world. So let's go to Srila Prabhupada's purport. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In human society, there are attempts to educate human being, but for animal society, there is no such system, nor are animals able to be educated. Therefore, animals and unintelligent men are called Muda, or ignorant, bewildered, whereas an educated person is called Vidwan. The real Vidwan is one who tries to understand his own position within the material world. For example, when Sanatana Goswami submitted to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his first question was, Ke ami kene amaya jara tapatraya. In other words, he wanted to know his constitutional positions and why he was suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence. This is the process of education. If one does not ask, who am I? What is the goal of my life? But instead follows the same animal propensities as cats and dogs, what is the use of his education? As discussed in the previous verse, a living being is entrapped by his fruitive activities, exactly like a silkworm trapped in its own cocoon. Foolish persons are generally engaged by their fruitive activities or karma because of strong desire to enjoy this material world. Such attracted persons become involved in society, community, and nation and waste their time not having profited from having obtained the human forms. Especially in this age, Kali Yuga, great leaders, politicians, philosophers, and scientists are all engaged in foolish activities thinking this is mine and this is yours. The scientists invent nuclear weapons and collaborate with big leaders to protect the interests of their own nation or society. In this verse, however, it is clearly stated that despite their so-called advanced knowledge, they actually have the same mentality as cats and dogs. As cats and dogs and other animals, not knowing their true interest in life, become increasingly involved in ignorance. The so-called educated person who does not know his own self-interest or the true goal of life becomes increasingly involved in materialism. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises everyone to follow the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Specifically, at a certain point, one must give up family life and take to the renounced order of life to cultivate spiritual knowledge and thus become liberated. This is further described in the following verses. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada and Matajis. So some of it we already discussed. So unless we ask the question, what is my constitutional position and why am I suffering from the three miseries of material existence? This process of education, if one does not ask, this is nothing but same as what the life that animals are leading. Human beings, human life, or any living entity is here. Prabhupada writes, is compared to life of a silkworm trapped in its own cocoon. The cocoon is nothing but the desires of the karma. So we should ask who am I and what is my constitutional position? What is that I am supposed to be doing during this lifetime, other than just feeding myself and feeding my family? Unless we ask that question, we are no different from animals. This is what here Prabhupada, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that Prabhupada compared that with a trapped silkworm trapped in a cocoon. So we talked about this multiple times in multiple chapters, multiple stories. Basically, you are what you are. When you make, when you are made of what you are. Basically, what it means is the things that you like today are based on the karmic activities that you have done previously, or you have been given a certain body, or just like a silkworm, you have been trapped in a certain body to fulfill certain karmic desires that have been come out of your past karmas, basically, right? We always talked about what karma means here, what fruitive action means here. Karma means what is karma really means? I think we talked about it multiple times. I mean, so can somebody explain what the word karma means really? Hare Krishna. I know everybody are in mute, but I don't know if they're there, they can hear me or not. I'm trying to make it a little bit interactive.
Activities we do, Prabhuji.
Activities we do, okay, and
And అది పోయిన జన్మలో మనము ఏవైతే కోరుకున్నామో అవి కూడా కర్మ రూపంలో మనకి ఇక్కడ వచ్చేస్తుంటాయి.
so the activities we do and the things that we face,
Yeah.
the things that are thrown on us, right?
Yes,
So
correct.
if you, right?
Reactions, Prabhuji. Reactions of activities also is karma.
Reactions of activities are also karma, right?
Consequences, Prabhuji, basically. The consequences we get.
Consequences of certain things that
Yeah.
we have
We do.
done, right? So what should our behavior be? So the consequences are thrown at us. The reactions are thrown at us. The reactions are the things that we face. But what is in our hands is how we are now reacting to the reaction of the past. That is what is your current karma. That is how you build up your current karma. You get the difference? So that's the freedom we have. The things happen based on what you have done in the past. But when those things are now happening, how you react to it determines your future karma. So in the sense, how you react to it determines whether you are going to be another silkworm in a cocoon, or how you react to what things are happening around you determines how you, whether you are going to stay in the cycle of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi or be able to get out of that Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. And human life is an opportunity to make that reaction of in such a way that you get out of this karmic cycle. And how do you do that? And that's what these 3-4 slokas explain basically. That can be done only with the spiritual knowledge. When you do karmic activities with spiritual knowledge, when you do the karmic activities with the right education knowledge, and that right education knowledge is what is all about questioning who am I and what is my constitutional position. Until you ask those questions, you are bound by the karmic activities that you are doing, and you are reacting to it in an uneducated way. That means you're simply signing up for another lifetime and another lifetime and another lifetime. This is what animals do, and humans have an opportunity to get out of this. And if you do not make use of this lifetime for that particular purpose, you are no better than an animal. This is what here Prahlad Maharaj is saying basically. It is clearly stated that despite the so-called advanced knowledge, they actually have the same mentality as dogs and cats. As cats and dogs and other animals, not knowing their true interest in life, become increasingly involved in ignorance. The so-called educated person who does not know his own self-interest of the true goal of life becomes increasingly involved in materialism. Then why does life become more involved in materialism compared to the spirit? Why is it mind on its own? Why is mind on its own not wanting to get out of this materialism and work towards spirituality? This is something we should all question ourselves. We make most of our decisions through our indriyas, like watch, you hear, and stuff like that. The first thought that is coming through our indriyas, if we start absorbing, then the maya, the materialistic world influenced by maya comes to you first than the transcendental nature of spiritual world, basically. In the sense, for understanding materialistic aspects are getting trapped into materialistic things, the basic vision is sufficient. But to extend your vision to spiritual or transcendental knowledge of the God's activity, you would need a deeper vision, a vision that is filled with the right knowledge, and the right knowledge that is coming from the right parampara. So the first thoughts that are coming should always be absorbed, not absorbed, but observed more, and see how much of it is going to be spiritually useful. Until unless we do that, we are going to be attracted and increasingly involved in materialistic activities. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj has advised everyone to follow the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Okay. Varnashrama Dharma is a broad subject. Any dharma that we have in this world, it is meant for or is designed to for human life to have an bondage with the God. Even by that's why today we call it the last week Maharaj has called about Varnashra Dharma. He gave us a big nice class about Varnashra Dharma, and he also talked about Daivi Varnashra Dharma. At the end of the Varnashra Dharma, you have to make it a God-centric Varnashra Dharma, and then the Varnashra Dharma should end into Daivi Varnashra Dharma. Especially at certain point of time, certain point, one must give up family life and take to renounced order of life to cultivate spiritual knowledge and thus become liberated. This is further discussed in the following verses. Prabhupada Mataji, it's not an easy thing. Again, when they say to give up family life, you have to give up the attachment of the family life. And giving up family life is not such an easy thing. We were discussing last week in our Bhagavad Gita class. It is said once you listen to Bhagavad Gita, you get transformation. Right? Once you understand, once anybody listens to Bhagavad Gita, he should get transformation. And Arjuna listened to the entire Bhagavad Gita from Krishna and he got transformation and he was able to do the same war without making it an akarmic war. Because, without getting any karma out of the war, he's able to make the same war as duty of God rather than his own self-interest. He was able to make that war a spiritual war than a personal war. Right? That's the power of Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada Mataji is the other person who actually heard or listened to the entire Bhagavad Gita, apart from Arjuna, who is the other person that actually listened to the entire Bhagavad Gita?
Sanjay.
Sanjaya, okay. And
The Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra listened through the entire Bhagavad Gita. Maybe after Arjuna, it's Dhritarashtra who listened to the entire Bhagavad Gita, but there's no transformation. You see what happened? Because we said when you listen to Bhagavad Gita, you should get transformation. But after listening to the entire Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra, and and the war was over, probably we'll talk more about in this 1 week of the 18 days of Kurukshetra. I'm sure Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is going to give more enlightening things through this. At the end of the war, Krishna and Bhima and everybody comes, and Dhritarashtra still wants to kill Bhima. By then, all his 100 children are died, and all his grandchildren are dead. But then, then he heard the entire Bhagavad Gita that Krishna told Arjuna, with the same thing he heard, but there is no transformation. So the point here is, it is such a difficult task to give up that family life and take renounced order of life and cultivate spiritual knowledge. And that's the only way to get liberated. So the things to understand is, yes, knowledge is the one that we need, but the mindset with which we take this knowledge is equally important. Arjuna took this knowledge with such an what do you call it? Keeping Krishna in a Guru Tattva Bhava, and he himself as a Shishya, and wanting to learn that knowledge so that he gets out of that misery. And the whole Bhagavad Gita is an response to one question by Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra was never seeking transformation. He's only looking for answers of what happened, what is preventing his son to become the king. So what it means is, the knowledge is there, the transcendental knowledge is there, but we also have to be in a state to absorb that knowledge. Otherwise, we get easily attracted back to materialistic thinking. The reason why I'm talking about this is, post-war, then Vidura comes and he actually cuts the last knot of the Dhritarashtra saying, scolding him, what are you doing like a fool? Here, get out of this place. You're still finding yourself comfort in materialistic life. This is the time you should get out of this materialistic life. The world has helped you by taking away all the order of mind, basically. Whatever you considered mine is gone. Whatever you considered mine is dead now, basically. But you're still taking shelter under the Bhima and Arjuna and the Pandavas rule, thinking they are respecting you. So they're giving you your space. And now you're finding comfort in the so-called mine in the palace and then the riches of the palace. But this is not going to liberate you. Take this opportunity, follow the dharma, follow the Varnashrama dharma and get out of that. That will help you get you back onto Daivi Varnashrama dharma or get you back into spiritual path. So in essence, the preachings of Bhagavad Gita helped, but the final knot has come, final strike has come only when Vidura gave him the final push to get out of. So do we want to wait to that point? So much around us has to be taken away, and then you stand yourself in a such an what do you call unpleasant and not able to do anything state, and then think of God. That's not what here Prahlad Maharaj is saying. He's telling his young little friends, 5-year-old boy, to his friends at that age group. He's telling, this is the time we should get out of this. Even the most intelligent people have failed. We have this opportunity to get on to something better, and we should take that as you know, lesser learned people. These people are lesser learned people, basically. So let's not learn something wrong, something bad. This is the thing to learn, and we should get out of this world, is what Prahlad Maharaj is saying here. So let's get on to the next two shlokas, 17 and 18. My dear friends, O sons of demons, it is certain that no one bereft of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has been able to liberate himself from the material bondage at any time or in any country. Rather, those bereft of knowledge of the Lord are bound by the material laws. They are factually addicted to the sense gratification, and their target is women. Indeed, they're actually playthings in the hands of attractive women. Victimized by such a conception of life, they become surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and thus they are shackled to material bondage. Those who are very much addicted to this conception of life are called demons. Therefore, although you are sons of demons, keep aloof from such persons and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, the origin of all the demigods, because the ultimate goal for devotees of Narayana is liberation from the bondage of material existence. Hare Krishna. So, without the knowledge of bereft, what's the word meaning of bereft? E-R-E-F-T? Is it the root word?
Bereft అంటే డివైడ్
Divide.
లేనిది
The root word is probably rift, I think, maybe. Be rifted, maybe, I don't know.
bereft
Bereft,
BREFT
So bereft is kind of denying it, or not accepting, or not going through the knowledge, basically, right? Rejecting, right? Anybody who rejected the Lord, the knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead anybody who has rejected, we do not know of anybody who has rejected and still got himself liberated from the material bondage, right? Is that the correct understanding? Those bereft of knowledge of Lord are bound by the material laws. So you have the choice, do that or do this. The thing is, we are always engaged in doing one or other thing. The one or other thing is either material things that bond you to materialistic laws, or things that take you to transcendental laws, basically. Prahlad Maharaj is saying, the only way, we have not heard of anybody who have rejected Lord have been able to successfully be liberated. There are nobody in the history who did not know or who have rejected the knowledge of Lord are able to go and get the liberation, basically. When you keep yourself away from this knowledge, or when you reject this knowledge, when you what do you call it? When you don't follow this knowledge, you are automatically bound by the material laws. They're factually addicted to sense gratification. The only way to get out of a sense gratification is take shelter on the shelter in the knowledge of the Lord. Indeed, the sense gratification starts with getting attracted to women. Indeed, they're actually playthings in the hands of attractive women. We have seen this in the so-called, I mean, in the whole Puranjana story, right? How Puranjana gets attracted to Puranjani and still not satisfied in life, and he becomes what do you call it? Whimsically, randomly go and start hunting and killing animals to satisfy his own some egoic satisfaction, and still he's not happy. Then he comes home, and then there are shlokas which shows how he gets purified. They talk about how he gets purified with a shower and with a knowledge, and that puts him back into transcendental spiritual thinking, and that's what gives him the ultimate satisfaction, basically. So until that happens, you're just victimized in conception of life. They become surrounded with children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren, and thus they're shackled to material bondage. Those who are very much addicted to this conception of life are called demons. So you think you are the demons, you think you are the sons of demons, but what makes you a demon is not the birth of you, but the path you choose. Therefore, although you are sons of the demons, keep aloof from such persons and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, the origin of all the demigods. Because the ultimate goal for the devotees, for the devotees of Narayan is liberation from the bondage of material existence. So in the previous shloka, he compared them to not surrendering to God, or not wondering about the God knowledge, or not thinking of the purpose of life is compared to animals. So here rejecting such knowledge is compared to demons. So he's telling this to demons, the sons of demons. He's calling them those sons of demons. You think you are demons and you are the ones who are born as demons, but the actual demons are the ones who have rejected this knowledge and who are keeping themselves away from this knowledge. Um, in the knowledge of Narayana and the origin, the person who is origin of all the devatas also, basically. So most of the time, the demons or the sons of demons are taught that their goal in life is to defeat the devatas. And here Prahlad Maharaj is saying, why do you worry about defeating devatas, but take shelter of the person who have actually created devatas, that then you don't have to worry of even defeating devatas, basically, right? So let's get through the Srila Prabhupada's purport. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, can somebody help read through this purport for me?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Okay, Mataji, Deepa Mataji, thank you, Mataji.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prahlad Maharaj has maintained the philosophical point of view that one should give up the dark well of family life and go to the forest to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hitvatmapatam grihamandhakupam vanam gatoyat dharim ashrayeta. In this verse also he stressed the same point. In the history of human society, no one at any time or any place has been liberated because of too much affection and attachment for his family. Even in those who are apparently very educated, the same family attachment is there. They cannot give up the association of their families, even in old age or invalidity, for they are attached to sense enjoyment. As we have several times discussed, Yanmaithunadi Grihamedhi Sukham Hi Tuchham. So called householders are simply attracted by sexual enjoyment. Thus, they keep themselves shackled in family life. And furthermore, they want their children to be shackled in the same way. Playing the parts of playboys in the hands of women, they glide down to the darkest regions of material existence. Can you slide down? Yeah. So-called householders are simply attracted. Thus, they have themselves shackled in family life, and furthermore, they want their children to be shackled in the same way. Playing the parts of playboys in the hands of women, they glide down to the darkest regions of material existence. Adanta gobhir vishatam tamishram punah punascharvita charvananam. Because they are unable to control their senses, they continue a life of chewing the chewed and therefore descend to the darkest material regions. One should give up the association of such demons and adhere to the association of devotees. Thus, one will be able to be liberated from material bondage. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So this is what we see in the so-called what do you call advanced lifestyle that we all have now, basically, right? Worry about materialistic satisfaction, and we wanted the children also to be successful materialistically, and their grandchildren and their grandchildren, and so on and so forth. And for most people, the success means be able to get the car you want, be able to get the house you want, be able to taste the food you want, be able to visit the place you want, and you know, just satisfy your eyes, ears, taste, and everything with the best of the best that's available in the world, basically. So I want, so what happened? This small thing I wanted to share here. Nothing new in this. What I'm telling you, everybody knows this, but something that happened in the last 1 week for me. So this one of our very close associate in our office, basically, he's an elderly man. He's currently like he's 90 plus now. So for the last 10 years, I know him very well. There was never a day, there's never a meal in his life that was made of pure vegetarian. And every night, the best thing he does is cup of whiskey and sleep. You know, this man is a very truthful person, very socially wonderful person. He went through a lot of government. Is an IAS officer. Because of his strict nature, he went through a lot of transfers and all those things. Last week when we went to him, he is not doing very well at this stage. He could not even recognize any one of the people that worked with him for 10 plus years. That worked with him for the last 10 plus years. His memory has faded so much, his appetite has gone so much. He's not able to digest anything you eat. So this is the state of most of us that's going to be, unless until we take shelter in spiritual world. Not that he's a bad person at all. In the normal human way of life, he's one of the best of people that I came across in Kali Yuga. He's following his karmic dharma. He thinks doing my karma as proper dharma and all that stuff, basically. But somewhere that did not culminate or did not converge with the spiritual dharma. Until that happens, you know, the karmic dharma, or we all call about these are all. This is my yesterday. Prabhuji was talking about most of the dharma when he's talking about Bhishma. Bhishma basically, Bhishma has the Kuladharma, Swadharma, then the other. The Duryodhana has his own dharma, Dhritarashtra has his own dharma. Until these dharmas, Sarva Dharman Parchacha Mamekam Saranam Braja. Until it meets that point, then these are all individual dharmas. Until we can culminate, or we can submerge, or we can what do you call it, fill it with the God conscious dharma. They're simply different dharmas that will get you into different cocoons in different lifetimes, basically. So this is what Prahlad Maharaj is saying here. Basically, one should give up the association of such demons and adhere to the association of devotees. Thus, one will be able to be liberated from material bondage. So it's only the association of devotees that can help you bind you to the knowledge of God 24/7. Only that association of devotees can give you the taste of bondage with God. The taste of bondage with materialism is a lot more easier than to get the taste of bondage with the Lord. And that can happen only with the mindset. The first thing is the mindset is beyond materialistic horizon, basically. Um, the best of materialistic horizon that you can reach is make more money, make more property, make more luxury, and all those things. But they all have the limitation of funeral ground, I guess. Beyond that, nothing comes, really, right? At that point of time, even if you start to realize when you look back and if you start looking at what have I done, there's nothing more that can take a corrective action, basically. So, Prabhuji Mataji, this is what exactly Prahlad Maharaj is trying to tell the young minds, basically. If you do not surrender at this stage, even the most intelligent people have failed in achieving the liberation, in spite of the fact they have the uh, opportunity of being born as a human form, being born as a person who could think and mold their lives and get out of this karmic cycle. So let's get on to shloka number 19. So here from this shloka onwards, here Prahlad Maharaj is saying, now that we have found what is the please Lord Narayan, but again, pleasing Narayan is finding Narayan is not such a simple thing, because you have to cross the barriers of materialistic thinking to please Narayan, basically. My dear sons of demons, the supreme personality of Godhead, Narayan, is the original super soul, the father of all living entities. Consequently, there are no impediments to pleasing him or worshipping him under any conditions, whether one be a child or be an old man. The relationship between the living entities and supreme personal Godhead is always a fact, and therefore there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. So here Prahlad Maharaj is saying how difficult or how easy it is for pleasing the Lord. So it's all that. So what is the first quality that we need to have in pleasing the Lord? The wanting to please the Lord should be is the first quality, right? First measure. Once you have the desire for it, then you would want to spend more time with devotees. That becomes the media um, through which you can attain the right guru and then start absorbing the right path, basically, or the habits, or the involuntary, or cultivating those involuntary habits to keep you in relationship with God, basically, right? That's what we wanted to do, because we want to develop that muscle memory for love of Lord, basically. We want to develop that involuntarily be able to love Lord, basically. That's what happens at the time of death. Nothing is voluntary, nothing is under your control. That's the reason why our senses, so we call it limited, and we call God Rishikesa. His senses are not limited, basically, right? So you have to develop that involuntary activity. And here Prahlad Maharaj is going to tell in the next shloka, so how easy or how difficult, and where this Narayana is. Here he's starting to say with this Narayana is the same original super soul entities that sits in every human being, basically. So let's read through to some portions of this purport. Can anybody help me read through this purport?
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dalatana Mataji,
Yeah.
please Mataji.
One may ask, one is certainly very attached to family life. But if one gives a family life to be attached to the service of the Lord, one must undergo the same endeavor and trouble. Therefore, what is the benefit of taking the trouble to engage in the service of the Lord? This is not a valid objection. The Lord asserts in Bhagavad Gita 14.4, Sarvayoneshu Kaunteya Murtaya Sambhavantiya Tasham Brahma Mahadhyonir Aham Bija Pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed giving father. The Supreme Lord, Narayana, is the seed giving father of all living entities, because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Mamai Vamsho Jiva Bhuta. as there is no difficulty in establishing the intimate relationship between a father and son. There is no difficulty in re-establishing the new natural intimate relationship between Narayana and the living entities. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhaya. If one performs even very slight devotional service, Narayana is always ready to save one from the greatest danger. The definite example is Ajamila. Ajamila separated himself from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by performing many sinful activities and was condemned by Yamaraja to be very severely punished. But because at the time of death he chanted the name of Narayana, although he was calling not for the Supreme Lord Narayana, but for his son named Narayana, he was saved from the hands of Yamaraja. Therefore, pleasing Narayana doesn't require as much endeavor as
Yeah.
as much endeavor as
Yes, sir.
pleasing one's family, community, and nation. We have seen important political leaders killed for a slight discrepancy in their behavior. Therefore, pleasing one's society, family, community, and nation is extremely difficult. Pleasing Narayana, however, is not at all difficult. It's very easy. One's duty is to revive one's relationship with Narayana. A slight endeavor in this direction will make the attempt successful, whereas one will never be successful in pleasing his so-called family, society, and nation, even if one endeavors to sacrifice his life. The simple endeavor involved in the devotional service of Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, can make one successful in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore bestowed his blessings by saying, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtana. If one wants to derive the actual benefit from this human form, he must take to the chanting of the holy name of the Lord.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So here, Prabhupada is saying, pleasing family is much more difficult than pleasing God. There's something very powerful that struck to me. He's saying, even if you pleasing anything in the materialistic world is very difficult, because how much you behave in a pleasing way, nothing is guaranteed especially in day and days. Even if you look at a political leader, uh, it is difficult for a political leader to continue his state, basically the state of continuing to please the people, to see him as the leader for again and again and again. Even that fades away with time. That's the time fact. That the time, the what do you call it? The Kalarupa of God, the time factor of God, basically the time element of God only decays anything. So that's the reason why you see the superstars fade away, the great cricketers fade away, the great actors fade away, the great leaders fade away. So the same thing happens in every relationship also. The family that you have worked day in and day out, the moment you become sick, that relationship also becomes brittle and fades away. But the relationship with Narayana is not like that. And it's not very difficult. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, as in the form of super soul, resides in every human being. And all you have to do is get connected to him. That the soul get connected to the super soul. And here, Prabhupada also talks about an example of Jaman. Though he did not intend to call Narayan, just by calling the name of Narayan, he was shown the path of liberation. And here again it says, even for one time, if you chant, if you have put in the right perception in thinking the God's name, you will be shown the path of liberation. One or other point you will be shown the path of liberation. See, so that's why calling or taking this path is not such a difficult one. That we, as again Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, all glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtana. If one wants to derive the actual benefit from this human form, he must take to the chanting of holy name of the Lord. So you want to take advantage of the human life. You are given, I don't know, whatever time you are given, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of time, out of which I don't know how much of it is really active time period. That's the opportunity you are given, and that has to be spent and not wasted in something else, but has to be spent to be spent in Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. That's the only way you can please the Lord. And pleasing the Lord is much more easier than pleasing your own family member or what do you call it, yours, and you have been living for it basically. But but the Lord never cheats you, but you could be cheated by the materialistic people. We heard of the stories. One man, uh, he robs the trespassers to take care of his family. But what happens is when one sadhu comes and says, "Yes, what are you doing is wrong," then he says, "My dharma is to feed my family, so that's why I took this path." Then the Lord says, the sadhu says, then go and ask your family that what you are doing is a karma, you are accumulating karma, and how many of them are willing to take your karma because you've been doing all this for their own sake. And none of the family said, your duty is to feed us, and your duty, and why should we take your karma? You're only doing your duty. How you do your duty is your choice, and you have chosen to a wrong path. We have nothing to do with your wrong path. We are only here to take your karma, the fruits that you are bringing home. Basically, how you are bringing is your problem. Then you are the one responsible for the consequences of what you are doing, not doing this. So you see, that's what that's the state of family that we think is ours, basically, or we think we. So that's the kind of disappointment one might see when you have dedicatedly kept your life only for materialistic satisfaction and nothing in the spiritual path, basically. So that's not the best use of making it. It does not mean you should abandon your family, sir. But it is more important that you are part of the Varnashram Dharma, but make it Daivi Varnashram Dharma, basically. You have to do your responsibilities, duties of feeding the family, but with God consciousness. It's not just the basic education, but the right education. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam, that's the education we want to give to the families so that they get liberated. And that's the purpose of your life. And that's the purpose of you as a family member have to uh, take that responsibility to make sure the people that are depending on you have taken up that kind of path, basically, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, who is infallible and indefeatable, indefatigable, is present in different forms of life, from the inert living being, such as the plants, to Brahma, the foremost created living being. He is also present in the varieties of material creations and in the material elements, and the total material energy and the modes of material nature, Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, as well as the unmanifested material nature and the false ego. Although he is one, he's present everywhere. He is also the transcendental supreme soul, the cause of all causes, who is present as the observer in the course of the hearts of all living entities. He is indicated as that which is pervaded and as the all-pervading super soul, but actually he cannot be indicated. He is changeless and undivided. He is simply perceived as the supreme Satchitananda, entirely knowledgeable and bliss, being covered by the curtain of external energy. To the atheist, he appears non-existent. So, what stands between you and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What stands between you and the Super Soul is the curtain of external energy, God's inferior energy, the Nyuna Shakti of God, basically, the materialistic energy, basically. So somebody asked me, how do I know whenever I'm doing something, is it me speaking or the super soul speaking through me, basically? It is an important distinction we need to make, basically. And it's not an easy distinction. That distinction becomes clear the more the soul is not depending on the karmendriyas, panchabhutas and panchendriyas, the the five elements of the Indriya Ruchi or the Indriya Bhava, then the able to make the subtle body, the Manasu, Buddhi, Ahankara, calm down in such a way that they're all pointing towards the super soul. They're all pointing towards the spirituality for solutions. Then that's when super soul starts to speak. Until then, you are doing your job. As long as you are doing your job, super soul simply remains as a sakshi matra, as a witness to what you are doing, to fulfill your desires, rather than to correct your desires. Basically, again, this
Yes,
is a
Prabhuji,
long
I
purport.
actually heard something
So
interesting in that
we're
regard,
not going
Prabhuji.
to go through this.
Hare
Tell me,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, I heard something very
Yes,
interesting
Mataji.
about this
Go ahead.
speaking of the super soul. So I heard that the subtle body has all the anarthas which are ingrained from past so many lifetimes. Like for instance, in the material world, whenever you are doing any activity, the byproduct has to be an anartha
Yeah,
only. It can't be anything else. Like for
right,
instance, you desire for something.
right,
You desire for something, and if that desire becomes like hankering, deep desire, it becomes kama.
right, right.
Sorry. So if you fulfill the desire, then you get greed for more.
Ahankar.
That is lobha.
Yeah.
If you don't get
Mhm.
it, then
Yeah.
it becomes frustration, and then anger, it becomes krodha. If somebody else gets it, then it becomes envy and jealousy of that other person. Uh,
So,
so, kama krodha moha lobha mada matsarya. Atlaga, like if you get it, it becomes greed. If you don't get it, it becomes anger. And in that anger, you become illusion, and you fall down. అయితే
right.
సో ఎనీథింగ్ మనం చేసినప్పుడు అనర్థాసే దాని బై ప్రొడక్ట్స్ కాబట్టి ఆ అనర్థాస్ అలాగా మన సటిల్ బాడీలో అలాగా సో మెనీ మిలియన్స్ అండ్ మిలియన్స్ ఆఫ్ లైఫ్ టైమ్స్ ది అనర్థాస్ is accumulating like dust particles in our subtle body, and unless and until that is purified. So when we think that we are our super soul is actually talking us and directing us towards some activity, it's actually not the super soul, it is the mind only which is talking.
Absolutely,
Super
absolutely.
soul can talk to you only when this subtle body is completely purified, anarthas are gone, and it becomes like a clean mirror. And anarthas can go only when the transcendental sound vibrations can start cleaning it. Unless and until we are chanting, unless and until we are in the purificatory process of devotional service, at the stage when all the
Absolutely,
anarthas are gone,
absolutely, Mataji.
appude super soul can talk. Until then, it is the mind talking. We have to be very, very careful in understanding that. That's why we need to take directions of the scriptures.
Absolutely,
So
Mataji. That,
in directions of scripture, ante sadhu sangha shastra, and even the guru, why we are relying on the guru's instructions and the shastra's instructions, because we know we still don't have that capacity to talk to our super soul. So super soul definitely talks, because personification of super soul is our guru is personification of the Paramatma, who is
right.
right in front of us. So మనకి ఆ కెపాసిటీ లేదు కాబట్టి మనం డైరెక్ట్లీ ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్స్ ఫాలో అయ్యి మనం అది ఫాలో చేస్తుంటే మెల్లిమెల్లిగా ఈ అనర్థాస్ అన్ని పోయి ఒకరోజు ఇట్ విల్ స్టార్ట్ రిఫ్లెక్టింగ్ ద ట్రూ నేచర్ ఆఫ్ ద సోల్. ఇది నేను విన్నాను ప్రభుజీ, సారీ టు ఇంటరప్ట్ యూ, ఐ థాట్ ఐ వుడ్ షేర్. హరే కృష్ణ.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, ప్రభుజీ.
Yes, Mataji. Can you hear me, Mataji?
Yeah, now I can hear you, ప్రభుజీ.
Yes,
మధ్యలో
Mataji. Your understanding is absolutely right, Mataji. That is, yeah, that is the కొంచెం disturbance. Yeah, I close the second correction. So that is the difference between Maharajas. Basically, they are at a state where they're at a state where they can enjoy that relationship with Paramatma. And when we come in connectivity, or when we come into their presence, they can speak to us through that Paramatmic channel, basically. Because Paramatma and Paramatma don't require a channel to talk to each other. When we are in front of them, and the Paramatma in us can communicate with us, Maharaj can communicate to us through the Paramatma channel, basically. And that is why we wanted that Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha can also make so much difference, basically. Right? Can you guys hear me? Because now I don't have a second connection. Generally, are you able to hear me?
Now it's okay, Prabhuji.
Yes,
No, it's-
Prabhuji, now it is okay.
Thank you so much, Deepa Mataji. Yes, Mataji, because our subtle body is not clean enough, and the way to clean subtle body is not to look at the gross body, but to look away from the elements of gross body and to look at purifying it through its connectivity with Paramatma. Until that happens, we are kind of stuck in the cocoon that Prahlad Maharaj is speaking about. Right. So let's get to the, I'm supposed to go until 30. I'll at least read through the purports. We'll read through the translation if you're not going through the purports basically. So 24th shloka is also talks about the relationship with God and how easy it is. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demonic nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Only way you can get out of this is, or the only way you can please Lord is get out of think beyond the conception of material knowledge, and get rid of the demonic nature without any enmity or duality, basically, without will be able to see all living entities equally. Most of the time, demons are the ones who 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 try to get themselves at a higher position, in the sense of by thinking they can consume animals, or the other living entities are there only to feed their appetite, basically, right? So here Prahlad Maharaj is saying it is important that you see them all in the same field. I mean, same in a friendly nature, and there's no enmity and there's no duality. And show mercy to all living entities. The only way you can show mercy to all living entities is by giving them the by becoming an instrument in bringing them to devotional service, and becoming their well-wishers. See, this is why preaching is so important. This is why the Sankirtana is so important. So yesterday somebody was asking me, basically, in Bhagavad Gita, it is said, we do not teach Bhagavad Gita to move to undeserving people. But you guys in ISKCON are standing in the crossroads and giving Bhagavad Gita. So if he's a deserving person, he himself will ask for it. Why are you forcing it on undeserving people? So I don't know. My answer to them is, we are not forcing out to undeserving people. We are identifying a deserving person and telling him you are a deserving person. Even there we are doing book distribution. Out of 110 people, only one person is showing interest and is taking that book. He is a deserving person, but he does not know that he is a deserving person, basically. So that's what we are trying to do, basically. So we are trying to bring other living entities to the path of devotional service, because we are their well-wishers, basically. We have to be their well-wishers and bring them to devotional service. When we try to bring people to satsang, it's not about bringing them to our class. It's about bringing them to Krishna's class. It's about bringing them to listen to Krishna Katha. It's about bringing them to keep their mind away from materialistic desires. It's about bringing them to get a relation with God, and that's the service that God pleases God a lot. Therefore, my dear young friends, born of demons, please act in such a way the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. How will he be satisfied? Give up your demonic nature. We all have the demonic nature. The more materialistic thinking we have, it's all demonic, basically. The less God-centric thinking we are demonic, basically, right? So mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. And that's what we are supposed to be working towards, basically. Hare Krishna. I'm skipping this purport. Let's get to the next few shlokas, please. 25th shloka. So from 25 shloka onward, so again, going by the Subodhini, nothing is unobtainable when Vishnu is satisfied. Therefore, surrender to him. So here, nothing is unobtainable for devotees who have satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes, the original source of everything. The Lord is the reservoir of unlimited spiritual qualities for devotees, therefore, who are transcendental to the modes of material nature. Um, what is the use of following the principles of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, which are all automatically obtained under the influence of modes of nature? We devotees always glorify the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore we need not ask for anything in terms of dharma, kama, artha, and moksha. To fulfill dharma, kama, artha, moksha, you are talking about so many different paths. But all those paths, or all those paths can automatically be satisfied. The path of liberation, the path of pleasing Lord, because Lord is such powerful entity, and Lord is such powerful personality, and Lord, when He's pleased, nothing is unobtainable for devotees who are satisfied the Supreme Personality of God, because He is the cause of all causes, and He is the original source of everything. And He's the reservoir of unlimited spiritual qualities. We study in engineering. I don't know if how many of you have gone through that path. There is something called heat sink, unlimited heat sink, they call it, zero friction, they call it. And these are all, I used to think they're all just theoretical concepts. But when I'm starting to read spirituality, I start to understand they're all really practical. When God is involved in it, He can make it because He is the source of unlimited of anything. Basically, He's source of is unlimited source of unlimited things. So, right? That is the potency of God. And when we depend on Him and when we satisfy Him, then there is nothing else that we should hanker for. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, everything is automatically satisfied because that is the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And He is the one who is created the whole thing. So when you get to the next shloka, 26th, religion, economic development, and sense gratification. These are all described in Vedas are Trivarga, are three ways of salvation. Within these three categories, in the are education and self-realization, ritualistic ceremonies performed according to Vedic injunction, logic, the science of law and order, and the various means of earning one's livelihood. These are all external subject matters of study in the Vedas. And therefore, I consider them material. However, I consider surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord, Vishnu, to be transcendental. Again, if you carefully observe, different of these categories, different of these things, education, self-realization, all these things get into different gunas, basically, right? They come in whether rajoguna, tamoguna, sattva. But what we need to have is the Suddha Sattva Guna. So it doesn't matter how much you are following the Vedic injunction, how much you are performing things, ceremonies according to Vedic logic. But if you do not have that love for God and the intention to please God, this is of no use. That reminds me of we have in where we are in the third canto. Kapil Muni explains Devahuti, the way to worship Lord, basically. I don't know if anybody remembers, basically. How the people with Rajoguna, it's Rajoguna worship Lord, the way people with Tamoguna worship Lord, the way people with Sattoguna worship Lord. Does anybody remember that? Hare Krishna. The Rajoguna, Sattoguna, Tamoguna worship of Lord. So there are people who thinks like, when we are doing puja, how many houses the puja, how many house people, I mean, in the surrounding people can hear the puja. That is more tamoguna puja, basically, like, how far people can hear my puja, basically. Is it disturbing them or not is a different aspect. Is it good for them? Not is a different aspect. But the intention is only how far, how much, how loud it is, basically. How many people are going to talk about this puja afterwards? Then the Rajoguna puja is how many people have I invited? How many people have come to my house? How many people have praised my puja? How many people are going to talk about my puja to other people and say how beautiful my puja is? This is exactly what you see during Varalakshmi Ratham, basically. How many people you are calling, how much nicely you are decorating, how many people are, what they are talking about your puja and all that stuff. That is more of the Rajoguna. It's on the Rajoguna platform. Then the people is Satoguna consider themselves, am I following the puja as per the rituals? Am I doing everything as per what the Brahmin has said? Has the Brahmin been paid enough? Is the Brahmin happy or not? This is more the Sattva Puja. But what is required is the Suddha Sattva Puja. What is Suddha Sattva Puja? Is God happy with my puja? Am I pleasing the Lord because of the way I'm worshipping Him? Am I pleasing the Lord with the way I'm serving Him? And that's the highest way of worshipping Lord. And after that, the Lord Himself will make sure, if He thinks your way of doing puja should be heard by everybody, your way of doing puja should call a lot of people to your puja, your way of doing puja, is it following all the Vedic rituals or not? It's up to Lord to see that is those things are met or not. Again, He will make the decision thinking if those things are met, is it going to keep you in your track, in your path of the proper worship or not? If He thinks, by giving you that kind of publicity, if you are going to miss the sole purpose of the puja, He's not going to give you that. He is not going to give you that. What do you call it? The results of passion or the results of tamoguna, basically. You understand? But the ultimate way of doing puja, the service, is for the pleasure of Lord. It's not just lip service of saying I'm doing it for the pleasure of Lord, but from the core of your subtle body, the core of your ego, the core of your intelligence, the core of your heart, you have to do it for the pleasure of Lord. You have to use all your independent freedom to please the Lord. And that's what here Prahlad Maharaj is talking about. In such scenario, you don't have to worry about other things, whether the other things are met or not. And that's the way to please the Lord. Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the well-wisher and friend of all living entities, formally explained this transcendental knowledge to the great saint Narada. Such knowledge is extremely difficult to understand without the mercy of saintly persons like Narada. But everyone who has taken shelter of Narada's disciplinic succession, can understand this confidential knowledge. Prahlad Maharaj is saying, again, this is not something that's coming out of my mouth. This is not something coming out of, I made it up. This is something that Narada has told me. And when somebody takes this knowledge in the disciplinic succession of Narada, they're all going to be benefited. So let's try to read this purport. Can somebody read this purport for me? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Shall I read?
Yes, Mataji, please read, Mataji.
It is stated here that this confidential knowledge is extremely difficult to understand, yet it is very easy to understand if one takes shelter of a pure devotee. This confidential knowledge is also mentioned at the end of Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Saranam Raja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. This knowledge is an extremely confidential secret, but it can be understood if one approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the bona fide agent, the spiritual master, in the disciplic succession from Narada. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to impress upon the sons of the demons that although such knowledge can be understood only by a saintly person like Narada, they should not be disappointed. For if one takes shelter of Narada instead of material teachers, this knowledge is possible to understand. Understanding does not depend upon parentage. The living entity is certainly pure on the spiritual platform, and therefore anyone who attains the the spiritual platform by the grace of the spiritual master can also understand this confidential knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. Again, Bhagavad Gita, Lord says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Again, that is, after you have understood all the dharmas, and then Lord is saying, you can leave all those dharmas when you're able to reach me. Basically, when you can take shelter only from, you can take my shelter alone is sufficient, basically. Abandon all varieties of religious systems, surrender unto me. This knowledge is extremely confidential secret, but it can be understood if one approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the bona fide as a spiritual master in the disciplining succession of Maha. Otherwise, you don't even know how to do the parityaja of the Sarva Dharma, basically. Right? Even to do the Sarvadharman Parityajya, you should get it, you should be able to do it only under the proper guidance. It's a surgical strike, really. And it has to be done under the proper guidance of the bona fide religious, bona fide parampara, basically, that's coming from the Narada Muni. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to impress upon the sons of the demons that although such knowledge can be understood only by saintly persons like Narada, they should not be disappointed. For it, if one takes shelter of Narada instead of material teachers, this knowledge is possible to understand. It's said by Bhagavad Gita again and again, basically. Raja Vidya, Raja Guru, right? This is the highest knowledge. But that can be understood. It's not like, it is not understood, but it can be understood. It's not difficult, but it can be understood only when you take it from the right masters, right teachers, right, not from the materialistic teachers. This knowledge is possible to understand. Understanding does not depend on the high parent case, basically. Right? The living entity is certainly pure in spiritual platform, and they can understand this confidential knowledge. Now, Prabhupada is again saying, is reiterating the purpose why, or the reason why this ISKCON has been established, but to distribute this knowledge in the proper procedure. Prahlad Maharaj continued, I received this knowledge from great saint Narada Muni, who is always engaged in devotional service. This knowledge, which is called Bhagavata Dharma, is fully scientific. It's based on logic and philosophy. It is free from all material contamination. Knowledge of binding ourselves for understanding or building a bondage with knowledge is not illogical. It is based on logic and philosophy. It's very scientifically proven. And I received this knowledge from Narada Muni. So in fact, Narada Muni, Prahlad heard this knowledge when he's in the womb of his mother. Don't know if his mother understood this knowledge, but Prahlad Maharaj understood this knowledge. That's why he became Prahlad Maharaj, basically, right? Because maybe he is a lot more cleaner in his soul, in the soul form at that point of time. He got it at the right time, and he is able to understand. He is again, he's demonic friends, basically, that this is not my words, this is the knowledge I got it from Narada Muni. And then the demonic friend, his friends ask him, basically, the sons of demons replied, Dear Prahlad, neither you nor we know any teacher or spiritual master other than Sanda and Amarka, the sons of Sukracharya. After all, we are children and they are our controllers. For you specially, who always remain within the palace, it is very difficult to associate with great personality. Dear friend, most gentle one, would you kindly explain how it is possible for you to hear Narada? Kindly dispel our doubts in this regard. So the next chapter talks about how Prahlad Maharaj got this knowledge from Narada Muni when he is in the womb of his mother, basically. So here, these friends are asking him the right question. You are also like a kid like us, and you actually have no way getting out of the palace. Where did you meet Narada Muni, and how did you get this knowledge, basically? And we'll see the answers to that in the next class, tomorrow's class by Santosh Aditya Prabhu. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of 7th canto, 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prahlad's instructions to his demonic schoolmates. Prahlad's instructions to all of us, basically, all the demons in all of us, basically. So we we consider ourselves his schoolmates. It doesn't matter demonic. If he considers us as his schoolmates, and if we consider ourselves as his schoolmates, we have every opportunity to liberate ourselves and get out of this materialist. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Professor Mataji. With that, we'll conclude the class. So I'm sorry we could not read through a lot of purports. Basically, each of these purport can itself be a nice 1 hour discussion, basically. But with the scheduling we had, I tried to rush it with that time, and still I went over by another 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, I guess. Hare Krishna, if there are any questions or anything to discuss, let's spend a few more minutes. Any comments, any guidance, any corrections, please. I'm also still learning, trying to tell what I heard. There is anything I told wrong, it's more my misunderstanding and my conceptual understanding is wrong, and not what Prahlad Maharaj said and what Prabhupada said. Basically, it is, please forgive me if I said something.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Any questions, anything, Mataji? Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
ఎక్సలెంట్ క్లాస్. ఇది ఇప్పుడు మెటీరియల్ స్పిరిచువల్ రెండు బ్యాలెన్స్ చేసుకుంటుంటారంటారు కదా, మరి
చెప్పండి.
వీళ్ళు కంప్లీట్ గోలోకం పోతారా, మధ్యలో ఉంటారా?
బ్యాలెన్స్డ్ వరల్డ్ లో ఉంటారంటారా? త్రిసంగ స్వర్గంలో ఉండిపోతారా బ్యాలెన్స్ చేస్తున్నారు?
ఎట్లా చేస్తారు మరి?
చెప్పండి ప్రభు. I don't know, Prabhu. I always get myself puzzled with the word called balance, Prabhu.
అదే నాకు అదే అర్థం కాదు, ఎట్లా భాష అది. అంటే వీళ్ళు గోలోకం కంప్లీట్ గా రాకుండా మళ్ళీ జన్మలు అయితే ఉంటాయి కదా ప్రభుజీ.
అర్థం కాలేదు, చెప్పండి. బ్యాలెన్స్ అని మీకు అర్థమైంది చెప్పండి.
బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ అంటే నాకేం అర్థం కాకనే మేము అడుగుతున్నాం కదా.
బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ అంటే ఏంటి చెప్పండి. వాట్ డు యు మీన్?
బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ అంటే ఇప్పుడు మెటీరియల్ వరల్డ్ వదులుకోకూడదు, స్పిరిచువల్ వరల్డ్ ఉండాలా.
అలాగే
అంతే కదా.
మెటీరియల్ వరల్డ్ వదలకూడదు అంటే you need material world because the spirit soul has been entrapped in the materialistic body. The materialistic body is part of the materialistic world. That is the only vehicle you are given to get out of materialistic world. So you need materialistic world because you need to survive, and that's the only way you can perform spiritual activities and get out of it. Right? For that reason, you need materialistic world. Anything beyond that is beyond balance, basically. That's all.
Perfect.
Ema?
Perfect answer అంటున్నాను.
If you
ఎంత అవసరమో for the survival, because you have been given a body, now you are trapped within it, but you need to survive. If you keep saying that, okay, complete spiritual ante, then what will happen is that you will not be able to take care of your own body, your relationships. If those get disturbed, you will anyway not be able to perform your spiritual duties.
Right. So the word balance is always, for me, it takes away. I always think, there's nothing really be able to balance. Basically, the more you think of balance, you lead into duality. It's more about integrating. It's more about integrating spiritual thinking into materialistic life. As I said before, we need materialistic body, materialistic living, materialistic life, but making it as much less materialistic as possible and making it as much more spiritual as possible.
That is simple living. Simple living.
See, you have to eat. You have to eat to live, but eat prasad to live it. So that's how making what you need to eat to live and making it prasad to live is the balance that you need to strike. There's no more the balancing act means whatever you're eating as prasad is the balancing act. Anything beyond that is not balance.
అంటే ఇప్పుడు మన ప్రభుపాదు చెప్పిన ప్రకారంగా మనం 50% అనేది మనం స్పిరిచువల్ గా స్పెండ్ చేయాలనేది ఒకటి చెప్తున్నారు కదా.
I mean, that's not my understanding.
అట్లని కాదు, అంటే అట్లా చేస్తే తప్ప ఎక్కువ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్ అనేది కాదు. ప్లస్ ఎంత ఎక్కువ మెటీరియల్ ఎదిగినా కానీ ఇప్పుడు మనం సింపుల్ లివింగ్ కిందకి అయిపోతుందేమో అని అట్లా
Yeah,
దాన్ని
Prabhu,
ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్
see,
చేసి.
there is nothing like 50% balance, Prabhu. It is 100% spiritual life. It's 100% spiritual life in materialistic world, basically. Yeah, anything, if we talk about balance, that's the result of the balance. You know, you balanced your life to eat only prasad. That's the balance you made. Instead of eating whatever you want. That's how you are balancing the art of living with prasad only. You see what I'm saying, Prabhu?
ఓకే ఓకే
అర్థమవుతుంది కదా బ్రో. The balance means
అర్థమైంది.
that. The balance means that. For me, the balance means that. I cannot live anything I want, and I'm making it spiritual by
Okay.
eating only pressure. That's the balance I'm striking.
రైట్
Yes.
కరెక్ట్. ఓకే,
Yeah.
థ్యాంక్ యూ ప్రభుజీ, ఎక్సలెంట్ ఆన్సర్.
It is not about 1 hour this one, 1 hour that one. It's not about 1 hour this one, 1 hour this. So you always balance. See, today you don't work in a slaughterhouse and you pick some other job because you don't want to do that. Now, where do you draw the line? Is that some other job? Slaughterhouse job is one end of the spectrum. Not doing any job and 100% living in the materialistic, in spiritual thinking is the other end of the spectrum. So somewhere in between is that balance? Is that really balance? I don't know. I don't want to call somewhere in between is balancing of two things, basically. Whatever job you are doing, if that is not taking you closer to Krishna, when I say job, whatever way you are spending next 1 hour, whatever way you are spending this particular day, whatever way you are spending this particular week, if it is not taking you to closer to Krishna, that means you are imbalanced. That means you are not balancing it right. In my opinion, that is means you are imbalancing this. Anything. So again, so people say, so are you asking me not to take care of my children anymore? No, it's not what it means. Not what it means. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, in the last time when he came, he clearly told a fantastic answer for this. Taking care of children are God's children, and God has given them life, and God will take care of them, and He choose to take care of them through me. I'm instrument of God to take care of them.
Yeah.
That's my service to God. Taking care of them is my service to God. Taking care of them is not because they're my children, but taking care of them is I am doing service. God has given them to as my children because He wants me to serve Him through them.
And
That's
put
the
them in
balance.
Krishna path.
Yes, that's the balance. That is what for me is balance is all about, basically. The same act you are doing, same activity you are doing, but with the spiritual connectivity, spiritual understanding. If you're not able to do that, then you're off balance. I don't know. That's my thinking, Prabhu. Sorry if I answered your question or
No.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am.
Prabhuji. Wonderful class, Prabhuji. Even I have struggled with the word balance, Prabhuji. There is no balance. Balance means into the vrikshasanam చేస్తారు చూడండి, ఒంటిగా మీద నుంచి బ్యాలెన్స్ చేస్తారు కదా, అక్కడ మనము అంటే పడిపోకుండా ఈ రెండు చోట ఈక్వల్ వెయిట్ పెడితే అప్పుడు పడిపోకుండా ఉంటామని, అది దట్స్ ద బ్యాలెన్స్ దట్ యోగాసన పోజెస్ talk about. But I always feel like you, Prabhuji, that there is nothing to balance here. There is no word balance does not apply here. And probably the closest one that you only said, which is very good, is integration of how two things integrate with each other. And one extra word that I add here is harmony, Prabhuji. How we integrate both in harmony, so they don't conflict each other. They don't become enemies of each other, or they don't become blockers of each other. They keep each other conducive. ఒక రకమైన హార్మనీ, ప్రభుజీ. అంటే we cannot pretend when we the thing with harmony is we cannot pretend that everything is hunky dory or very nice. If it is harmony, if it is harmonious, we will feel it. ఎంత 80-20 అవ్వచ్చు, 60-40 అవ్వచ్చు, I don't know everybody's formula depending on what stage their journey is, I think differs. But I think if we keep both material life and spiritual life harmonious, and material life encouraging and increasing the spirituality. I think that is the best thing. And what you said is truly very, very true, Prabhuji. 100% spiritual life in the material world. You said it very nicely, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Anything else, Prabhuji and Mataji?
హరే కృష్ణ ప్రభుజీ. థ్యాంక్ యూ ప్రభుజీ.
Mataji.
ఏకాదశి క్లాసు చాలా బాగుంది ప్రభుజీ. డిస్కషన్ కూడా చాలా బాగుంది. మాతాజీ చెప్పినట్టు బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ గురించి చెప్పారు. తర్వాత సూపర్ సోల్ గాడ్స్ వాయిస్ మనం మిస్లీడ్ అవుతాం కదా, అది చాలా బాగా చెప్పారు.
Yes, that is very important. You know, if you are in the false hope or false thought process, you are more likely to do more Vaishnava practice.
ఎస్, దీపం మాధవి బాగా కొత్త విషయం చెప్పినట్లు ఉంది. బాగా
చాలా చాలా బాగుంది ప్రభుజీ.
ఎక్సలెంట్, హ్యాట్స్ ఆఫ్. అవును, చాలా బాగుంది.
Thank you, Deepa Mataji.
థ్యాంక్ యూ ప్రభుజీ. థ్యాంక్ యూ ప్రభుజీ.
Hare Krishna. So there's nothing much more to discuss. So we'll close the class here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.